Yeah, so I actually wrote a version of this story well in advance of the award, even before I knew about the award. My mom had just died of cancer, and I wrote this very raw and sort of gasping version of it that was very vulnerable and breathless. And I did that sort of as a way to process what was going on. And then I sort of just let it sit for like a long period of time. And I would sort of revisit it every now and then and tinker with it a little bit. And I found that as I sort of progressed in my healing and my recalibration in the world, I could sort of tweak the voice to be a little calmer, a little steadier, a little more confident. And then slowly it sort of, took a shape and kind of had a voice and kind of reflected how I was moving through grief until I think the voice became sort of ready to like polished enough that I could put it out into the world. And then that seemed like a good opportunity to do it. The thing I really love about contests is that writing can feel like such a weird, solitary, nebulous kind of pursuit. Like you're kind of alone in like a room and you're like, nobody's expecting this story. It doesn't have a word count. It doesn't have a deadline. Like what even am I doing? Like it's just kind of this weird, like, does this even matter? And so contests are really great because they hand you a word count, a deadline, an incentive, financial incentive, a creative incentive, and they sort of put some parameters around what can kind of feel a little bit like amorphous sometimes. I work well when somebody's like, I need this by this time, and it has to be this long. And so when I'm struggling to give that to myself, I think contests can be really helpful for that. I mean, I think there's this perception that being a writer is like a an endpoint or like a sort of a destination that you can get to somehow. But I try to think of it more as like just a way of being in the world. And if it is your way of being in the world, and if it is your way of processing the world and making sense of what's going on with you, then the contest or the jobs or whatever it is you didn't get, they sort of become a little less relevant because you can get rejected from a contest, and if you are a writer, you will still continue to be in the world that same way. You will still continue to have writer eyes, and you will still continue to like to feel pulled and to feel called to explore whatever's going on with you through writing. And like nobody can really take that away from you. That's not a thing that somebody hands you. That's an internal thing that powers your body, or at least it is for me. And so I think you can't give these things so much power that they change the way you exist on the planet. Like that doesn't that doesn't seem like something that they should have the power to do because that comes from you. And so, I mean, I think with rejection, it's really hard, but I try not to get mad. I try to get curious. I try to become sort of like a detective and I try to say like, well, when I read the long listed stories, like what do they have in common? What did mine maybe not do that these are doing? And try to treat it with curiosity rather than collapsing. That's where I always try to land.